Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In a brand spanking new television interview with Bloomberg, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse stated a few fascinating things, not the least of which was relating to this headline. Look at this from Cointelegraph. Ripple CEO, only 1% of today's cryptocurrencies will survive. And indeed, I just finished watching the video. It was an interview a little over 7 minutes long. He said quite bluntly that he believes the price of 99% of cryptocurrencies on the market today will go to zero. And then he started saying words that for Moon Lambo are keywords like utility. And the whole thing behind this is what he is saying. It's my entire investment thesis. And I started to really realize it inside of the first month and a half to 2 months or so when I entered the world of crypto. Utility actually matters, and this is what Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse is effectively stating. He said things along those lines multiple times, including in this brand new video. So I've got that. I've got a couple tweets from an XRP community member I want to share with you, and then I'll wrap up the video with an article unrelated that I just found fascinating. It's titled, 3 Reasons Why One Trader Did Not Manipulate Bitcoin price to $20,000. And this is a follow-up to a story that I did report on pretty recently. I can't remember if it's been several days or so, but there was a report out there all over crypto media and crypto Twitter talking about how there was one trader that resulted in that massive 2017 run-up in Bitcoin price to nearly $20,000. And now we got a story saying not so fast. But before we get going any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button and go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel, because if you don't, your life will never be complete. And I think you know that deep down. As many as 99% of all cryptocurrencies will likely go to zero, according to a new prediction by Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. In an interview with Bloomberg released November 5th, Garlinghouse claimed that there are too many cryptocurrencies so far, forecasting that only 1% of all crypto is here to stay. That small number of crypto projects will be game-changing and grow significantly in the decades since they... see, that's a broken sentence. I didn't even catch that earlier when I read this. They mean in the decades to come, but they wrote in the decades because it's freaking crypto media, and it's basically amateur hour. There we go. This is like, I tell you what, comparing crypto media to like mainstream real media is like comparing, I don't know, karaoke to whatever you think is a good band where people can sing well. You know, it's like that. This is like amateur hour. People are getting sloppy during happy hour karaoke. That's kind of what this is. So anyway, let me just read it exactly like they said it again. That small number of crypto projects will be game-changing and grow significantly in the decades since they will be focused on solving real problems for real customers, Ripple CEO declared. Now, something popped in my head because he was actually asked point blank. So what about the price of? She called it Ripple, and then he corrected her and said, okay, well, Ripple's a privately held company. XRP, and you're referencing the price of XRP, right? And then he said, when we think about that, we're thinking in terms of, or he's speaking for himself, but thinking in terms of, a decade or two pertaining to XRP and the price of XRP. Now, this is fascinating because I haven't really heard him talk about a timeline of XRP in terms of price action since late 2017, maybe early 2018. I can't remember exactly, but he was interviewed, and somebody else was asking him about XRP price. What's going on with it right now? And he said, really, when I think about XRP price, I'm really thinking more along the lines of 3 to 5 years. That's what he said back then. And, given that it's been like a year and a half to 2 years, I think maybe that was not a long enough timeline there. But even so, it didn't sound like terribly wacky back then. It's just like, it's what I would say, and he'd probably phrase it a little bit differently in hindsight, but I don't think it was horrendously wrong to say that, not by any means, because from that point in time saying it'll be, if your concept is, I think it will be interesting to see XRP price 3 to 5 years from now, that makes a ton of sense to me. And just because he said that, again, it didn't mean that he would think that, whatever it was, XRP, it's in terms of success, we've only got 3 to 5 years to get there. That was not his stance, and so that's why it's like it's not some sort of big deal. But the way he stated it today is more in line with what I've been thinking. Now, I'm not saying, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that there won't be tremendous action prior to this, but in terms of long-term adoption, given that I think XRP is pretty much going to be here forever, I think if you're going to fast forward out, if you really want to see some truly mind-blowing price levels of XRP, and again, I don't make predictions, no financial background here, I'm just sharing with you my everyday Joe Schmo opinion. I think if you could just fast forward a decade or two, like Brad Garlinghouse was stating in this particular television interview, that would be a fun price to look at. I'm willing to bet, because there's real utility, there's real adoption here. And that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's for me, XRP. I nothing wrong if you're considering this. I'm not going to tell you right or wrong in terms of your intent with XRP. For me, I'm not counting on this for retirement. But if I'm right, I think that what I've invested could be substantial. I'm sure look, XRP Central Channel. I'm probably preaching to the choir there. I get that. But also on the flip side, just in case I'm wrong, this is not my retirement plan. Now, since that's also true, I'm happy to hold XRP however long. I'm never going to sell all of it, but I will ride this bitch to zero if need be. Okay, can I just say that? All right, I know I don't think I'm wrong. I am Mr. XRP Bull, but I'm just saying. So I think that if we could just fast forward that far ahead, that would be a fun price point to look at there anyway. But I'm happy to wait however long this takes. I am more patient than anybody else, if I could say. I believe that anyway. Anyway, according to Garlinghouse, the growing number of digital assets is caused by the hype around the crypto ecosystem. Noting that there are more than 3,000 digital assets that trade on a daily basis to date, Ripple CEO hinted that very few will actually be able to meet customer needs, arguing that the vast majority of them probably goes to zero, he stated. And here's a quote: "Anytime there's a new market, there are a lot of people that run into that market and try to show that they can solve a problem, they can deliver a customer need." And of course they can't in this case. Most people can't, or entities can't. Then you got a subheading here, criticizing Swift's transaction volatility. And it's amazing to me how frequently this will still come up. The idea of volatility of XRP being an issue in solving a real-world problem is as if that. Can you imagine if that were a problem and somehow we're like 7 years into Ripple existing and like they haven't fixed that or found? Can you imagine that? It conceptually sounds so absurd. Anyway, in the interview, Garlinghouse has also criticized the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, Swift. It's so fun to say. Even the full name, just say it out. It sounds archaic. I think anything, if you put the word telecommunications in anything, I think it sounds old. But anyway, so the so-called transaction volatility, elaborating that such phenomenon means a calculation of time and volatility. And he did state that. So he worded it a little. He was thinking off the cuff. Like I mess up stuff like this all the time too. He said when we think of volatility, we think about it in terms of time and volatility. What he really meant is time and price. In this case, the price of XRP, because it's a function of both, right? Anyway, citing a recent article posted by Ripple on XRP's enhanced volatility exposure, Garlinghouse argued that the XRP token has 1/10 the volatility exposure of a typical fiat SWIFT payment. In July 2019, SWIFT announced a successful trial of instant cross-border transfers in Asia, claiming that the instant payment pilot performed payments taking up to 25 seconds, with the fastest taking 13 seconds. And again, I'll say it there, I'm not going to get into this again, but just to be clear, in case you don't know what they're talking about there, oh my god, how could they have such speedy payments? We're talking about payments, literally payments, not settlement. They have not solved the settlement issue. The only way humans have devised a plan that can successfully do this is taking trust out of the equation, which means a digital asset, using a digital asset, XRP in this case, which is not, the whole ledger is not owned by anybody, right? It's truly distributed ledger technology. Anyway, the test involved interaction between Swift's global payments innovation instant payment platform and Singapore's domestic instant payment solution, Fast. As previously reported, Swift will allow distributed ledger technology firms to use its GPI platform. So there you go. It was an interesting video. So if you have some time, feel free to check it out. All right, here's a tweet from an XRP community member named The Meaning. He is at XRP The Meaning on Twitter. He went ahead and tagged the digital asset investor and yours truly, your boy Moon Lambo. Thank you very much for tagging me, sir. And he writes this: cool XRP/crypto story. I am always talking about cryptocurrency and XRP at work. Just mentioning it here and there. Finally, one of my coworkers said, you are always talking about this XRP. What is it? I proceeded to explain everything to him. From partnerships to utility, from the IMF to SEC, the speed versus Bitcoin, everything. The more I explained, the more questions he had. We ended up talking about it for 2 hours. By the end of the conversation, it's like a light came on, and he became more bullish than me on XRP. Now, first of all, I will say, talking for that at 2 hours at work, that's a good way to run out the clock. I like that. I support it. Go ahead, run out that clock. Yeah, so you're lucky you found somebody that seems to get it. I tell you, it's kind of like a mixed bag here. Like when I talk to people about this stuff, and even conceptually, it can get too complex for most people to really take it in on the first try. And I understand why. I really do. I think it takes a really, really long time to really fundamentally get what's going on. Like I've stated this before. I think it takes at least a few months, at least. Of like regularly looking into the stuff to fully get it, and so there's that. But you'll talk to some people in life, and some people are going to be very receptive, and some of them just, let's say, not visionary and just not going to get it. Highly skeptical, not necessarily in a rational way. It's just sometimes if something's different than the way life currently works, people just can't see it. That's the lack of vision, indeed. So anyway, I agree. This was a very cool story, and thank you very much for sharing. And thank you very much for the support, good sir. All right, last piece here. 3 reasons why one trader didn't manipulate Bitcoin price to $20,000. Bitcoin price highs in 2017 were not the result of a single trader on an exchange, the CEO of payment company Circle claims. In a series of tweets on November 4th, Jeremy Allaire disputed recent research which claimed Bitcoin's bull run to $20,000 was the result of efforts by a single wallet holder. The findings are currently featuring as part of the $1.4 trillion lawsuit against stablecoin Tether. Its issuance, researchers argue, coincided with Bitcoin price jumps. For Allaire, however, the idea that one Tether trader engaged in manipulation on an exchange had no logic. Exchanges use omnibus wallets that pool all customer balances and transactions on and off the exchange. So an analysis that shows that a single wallet was involved in flows from Bitfinex to other exchanges is meaningless. All it shows is that traders were trading, he summarized. Others, meanwhile, including Cointelegraph contributors, this is, after all, Cointelegraph piece, followed Allaire in disagreeing with the conclusion that entire markets were swayed by a single wallet. Wake up call, every market is manipulated. Everybody tweeting something about the price of a certain asset is manipulating the market. Doesn't mean you can't make money, trader Michael Van de Poppe summarized in a Twitter post on Monday. Bruce Fenton, former executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, criticized the technical proficiency of the data. He wrote, the entire premise seems to misunderstand how markets and stablecoins work. He responded, calling the research bad science. And so the concept, I'll tell you what, as far as it pertains to Tether, that's something that has always been fascinating to me. It's not something to be honest, I never intensely researched it, but I wondered, is there actually something to this printing Tether and using it to purchase Bitcoin? Is it doing something good or bad for the price, whatever your stance is? And so take a look at the subheading. More Tether does not mean higher Bitcoin price. The dispute comes as curious movements in Bitcoin price continue. As Cointelegraph reported, several recent jumps have sparked speculation, including one which induced the second biggest daily gains in Bitcoin's history. In December 2017, Tether's market cap was around $1 billion. But while Bitcoin's price is now 50% lower, Tether's market cap has increased 4 times over to current levels of $4.1 billion. Therefore, the issuance of new USDT thus does not directly correspond to Bitcoin/USD staying higher. And so that last point, that certainly makes logical sense, but then if you're on the other side of this, I guess if you're playing devil's advocate, does it still have an impact to a certain degree? And conceptually, and again, this is me not having thoroughly researched this at all, I would be interested in knowing more about that. Like, I don't see why the theory, to me, the theory of it doesn't sound bogus just on the service, having not researched it myself. The theory does not sound bogus at all. Anyway, a further theory about the 2017 activity centers on China. According to Elaine I don't know, a Bloomberg contributor formerly with Bitcoin mobile wallet app Abra, exchanges were unprepared for the consequences of Beijing's ban on crypto trading. Citing research from crypto industry startup Chainalysis, who said Chinese investors had stockpiled Bitcoin using yuan in advance. Once the ban was in effect, the traders had no way to trade crypto back to yuan, so they shifted to using tethers on overseas exchanges as a substitute for fiat currency. After all, the yuan is roughly pegged to the dollar, she summarized. The result, along with the initial coin offering, or ICO phenomenon for exchanges, was conspicuous, she added. Coinbase saw so much trading activity that the exchange broke. And the idea that a lone whale fueled this year-long Bitcoin bull run is more than a little silly. So they make some pretty reasonable points by and large, right? I think so. And it was kind of interesting just to hear the impact in terms of that the ban they're citing here with China 2017, which, by the way, when the news broke, I think it cratered Bitcoin's price by, 50% or something stupid like that. Yay, volatility. But that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!